Welcome to the Cosmic Cadence podcast. We are your hosts, Kate
and G. And this is the podcast where we decode the cosmic vibes of your favorite albums and the people that help bring them into the universe.
So we are back.
We didn't have a new episode a couple weeks ago in the cadence that we usually do. Haha.
Nice one, yes. And there was a reason. There was a reason, which we will tell you. We recorded almost, well, it was an entire episode. It was an entire episode. And we were trying to be good. We bought a little microphone and a phone holder at Five Below. Not Five Below's fault, but maybe it is. I don't know. But anyway, we were trying to record an episode in the car.
Another road trip episode.
Another road trip, yeah. So we thought that was fun. And the microphone decided to cut out probably like
I would say
4 songs in.
I would say maybe 4 out of the 5 songs of the album we were doing. But I think to backtrack a little bit, the thing about this microphone is we got it from Five Below, like you said, and we checked to see if it was charged, and it was charged. And even throughout us recording with it, I would look up and see if the light was still on. The light was still on. So I don't know what happened. I don't know when it died. I don't know when it decided to just lose our voices. But all that to say, we recorded an episode and then we lost an episode. So that was kind of the start of just a downward spiral from there.
Not good luck. Our demise was literally a mini microphone. So.
Yeah, it was the beginning of the end. But something I will say, I realized too, I think it happened how it needed to. In theory, we recorded an episode. We had fun doing so. We were on a road trip to a show to celebrate Kate's birthday. I have now had a birthday. So since you've last heard us, we're now older. A year older, a year wiser. We've learned never to trust microphones from Five Below again, or at least to double check that they're actually charged. Sure. But in that time, we decided let bygones be bygones. We can revisit the album at another time. And we decided to do that today. So instead of the road trip format, we're going to do our usual style of guessing the big 3 and going into that. But before we get into that, I know you're all waiting on pins and needles to hear what the album is. One of us is wearing the band, which we'll be talking about. Ha ha ha. But if we didn't lose that episode, we would have never had the idea to repurpose a previously recorded episode, which at the time we didn't even think, was going to come up because we were both taken by surprise by the announcement of next year's When We Were Young lineup featuring none other than the return of Panic at the Disco. So
the big bell, yes.
In lieu of a new episode, we were able to reshare our Panic episode talking about the exact album that they will be playing front to back at When We Were Young. And we are putting this out into the universe. We will be there. We will be re-recording the episode of A Fever You Can't Sweat Out, breaking down the astrological chart with Brendan Urie himself.
With it being played in real time.
Yes, it'll happen. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But all that to say, thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for listening. If you have been up till now, if this is your first time tuning into our podcast, thanks for checking us out.
I will say as well, it all worked out in the end, but it was tough to lose an episode for sure, because we put a lot of work into it. And also it has been a very tough energy. Perhaps you all out there are feeling it as well. It's just been a hard year. I mean,
it's been a very hard year.
And I think a lot of years.
What's been frustrating is around this time last year, I remember having conversations with you, which were like, next year is going to be our year. And then January started and we're like, Scorpio season, it's going to be our season. And it's just been, I'm ready for the year to end. It's been tough. And if you follow astrology like we do, we're getting ready to go into Mercury retrograde, which is always a struggle. Pluto is shifting planets and it's going to be sitting in Aquarius for the next 19, 20 years. It's a lot of heavy energies. And I think as Scorpios, a big trait for us is to die and be born again over and over. And it's been a lot of rebirth. It's been a lot of, new beginnings and changes and challenges. And it all started with that freaking microphone, you know?
The microphone kind of stopped, yeah. It was just like, it was kind of funny though, because we just sat in silence for like 5 minutes, like,
Yes.
that just happened. But I will say, we moved, we moved on from it, and now we get our second chance.
Without further ado, I think now it's time to reveal what album we're talking about.
Yeah, which one is it? Oh, I guess if you're watching the video, you'll see. So it is actually Fall Out Boy. I figured I was on a pretty good streak thus far of wearing merch that's related to our episode, so why not go with? I'm actually in a full sweatsuit, so full Fall Out Boy sweatsuit. So okay, so you already know we're talking about Fall Out Boy, and the album is. I would say, I mean, I know it's probably gonna be a hot take because there's a lot of
hot takes in the Fall Out Boy camp.
A lot of opinions in the Fall Out Boy camp. This is my personal favorite of Fall Out Boy's albums.
Okay, it's a personal favorite for me. It's not my like number one, but it's up there. I think I have a lot of like nostalgia tied to it too, especially from when it came out and like listening to it when I was going to school and all of that. So there's a special place in my heart for it for sure.
Fair, yes. So we are talking about From Under the Cork Tree, which I feel yeah, there definitely was a lot of nostalgia for me. And that's probably why it's my favorite, I would say. I mean, there's a lot of hits on this one. But it was also just so unique for its time, which funny enough is kind of where the tie to Panic comes in. I mean, there's also the tie of Pete Wentz's label that Panic was signed to, but they both really just were doing something at the time in a way that no one else had.
Yeah.
And they were both masters of the long song titles, which let me tell you, we also bought a notebook that ironically looked like a Magic 8 Ball from Five Below because we had it down to a science. We were like, you had the idea, we have to write the names down in a notebook because we had to use both of our phones to record. There's no way we were going to remember all the song titles. Yeah. So we put a lot of work into it.
And I will say too, like part of why we chose this album for our road trip episode is there's just so much like content in these songs and the titles alone that to try and guess its big three at the time felt like a very daunting task. So breaking it down by song like we do on the road trip episodes made the most sense. But having gone through it now, I think we needed it to happen the way it did because it actually gave us a chance to like really dive into the record, probably more so than we would have done had we not been in a car like listening to it with that intention. So we've now been able to kind of sit with and piece together what we think this album's big three is. So without, further ado, let's get into it. So do you have anything else you want to say about the album before we start breaking down the three?
I was going to ask you about your memories with this album. Do you have any specific memories?
I have two. The first one was seeing the video for Sugar We're Going Down on
Iconic,
MTV before going to school one day and just like not really knowing what I was looking at because like 1 minute there's a dude with like deer antlers and then you just see Patrick and he's like singing with the little hat and the sideburns.
Yeah,
like, and I was like, what am I taking in right now? What is this? And the song was so catchy. And then my second memory was getting the album from a friend in ways that you did back when you were our age and going to school in the morning with that as like my soundtrack basically of like walking into high school with Patrick I don't want to say screaming because he's not screaming but like soulfully singing in my ear, giving me the motivation to get through the school day. How about you?
Yeah, well, this was one actually quite a few of my CDs in high school were burned copies from a friend. So that's how I got to know the album. I like made my own, I think I talked about it in a different episode, but I made my own little jewel case and I wrote the song titles on the back in like loose leaf and then I printed out the album cover. So it was basically the CD. But the stuff that I remember, actually funny enough, I recently found this. So I had a poster of Fall Out Boy over my bed. I still have it. It was gray and their faces are kind of bluish. It's the four of them.
Yeah.
And I had a ton of Fall Out Boy merch because of this album. Like I had a Fall Out Boy face
Yeah.
because of this album. So I had like rubber bracelets that were, you know, popular back in the day. And actually, fun fact, my first MySpace photo, I'm wearing a Fall Out Boy shirt in that photo. I don't have that shirt still, unfortunately, but it had a little orange robot and it said Fall Out Boy. If anyone has that out there, I would buy it again. I have to go
I'm
look
sure
online. It's
somewhere,
probably somewhere,
somewhere on eBay.
very nostalgic for me, but yeah, I really, this is when I do remember a couple of the music videos. Dance Dance was another really fun one. I definitely haven't seen all of them, kind of similar to Panic. I probably have to sit down and do a watch one day. But this album was one that I listened to front and back, day after day. Fun fact, I learned all of the which I probably could still do like on the spot, the Pete kind of spoken word at the end of, I'd have to look at I have the song titles here.
And we'll save that for like online content.
Oh yeah. I'm not gonna do it right now. But this album just really blew my mind of how much I connected to it. And it's one I feel like that's celebrated, obviously, by a lot of people that love this kind of music. So I guess, okay, so maybe we should talk about favorite songs from this album, which is hard because honestly, the whole thing, luckily, we've talked about a lot of No Skips albums, and I feel like
this is definitely one. This is one for sure.
I would say, well, I kind of do have a lot to talk about, but one thing first, this isn't my favorite song, but I will say the way that the album starts with like the camera flash noises.
Yeah.
Iconic. I love that. I would say, so funny enough, Sugar We're Going Down obviously is a huge hit in the emo world, and you have the classics that kind of get rotated over and over. And it's one that I don't like, it doesn't get old as quickly as other ones do for me. And I don't necessarily know why that is, but it's a karaoke classic, and even like, I don't know, it getting played live or just hearing it out and about, like I still get like excited. And I'm like, oh, that's Sugar We're Going Down.
I think ultimately, you know, this album is just a great album. Like the way that it was written, the way Pete and Patrick were able to kind of work together to create what I would call a masterpiece of an album. I feel like Fall Out Boy's run, like their first 3 or 4 albums, was like a perfect run pretty much of just like a masterclass in songwriting. And I think even like for the bands itself, like they were doing something that a lot of bands weren't at the time. Like how many bands did you know where the singer wasn't the one writing all the songs?
Right,
you know, like bassist was front and center. Like it was just very cool and something different and something new. And I think that's why, you know, all of that has played into how they're still such a huge band 20 plus years later, for sure.
And we've gotten to see them quite a few times live, very lucky, which I would say, so my ultimate favorite song on this album is XO. And we got to see them play MSG this past year, and all I have wanted is to see XO live. That was my hopes and dreams. We saw them like maybe 3 times on the last tour bus run. And every time I was really hoping the Magic 8 Ball would be XO, and each time it was not. And I was very sad. But then we went to the MSG show, and it was literally like, in my personal opinion, like that set list was written for me.
It was a perfect show. It was a perfect show.
And we finally got to hear XO live, but it was kind of a funny moment of, you reminded me, like it wasn't even the Magic 8 Ball song. They just started playing it. And so I was watching, we were seated next to eating the I'm too excited, I can't even talk. We were seated next to each other, and the song started playing, but it was one of those things where like I was in disbelief, so it was like a 5-second delay of my brain to catch up, and I was just like, what? Like I was jumping up and down, like screaming the words. It was just incredible. And we even got Get Busy Living was the Magic 8 Ball that night. So obviously my spoken word little tortured poet high school heart was very, very happy about that one as well. But yeah, They make me so happy when I see them live.
They're such a fun band too. Like, and their shows, like I was able to see, like growing up, I didn't see them when they were touring. But I was able to see them play a smaller venue when they were getting ready to kick off like the Tour Dos run. And they can play any size room. Like, to see their show in a stadium or an arena or a shed, like they cater their shows so well to the environment they're in, but there's always the same amount of energy. There's always the same amount of fun and just like crowd interaction that they have that like is so special to them. Like if you have not gotten the chance to see Fall Out Boy, like the next time they're around, please do. Like I think they are probably one of the greatest live bands of the modern era.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I will say, like, even if you think you don't know the songs, you probably do.
Yeah, they have so many hits. So many hits.
Yeah, and I also was very lucky to see them at Riot Fest, and they did their run where they do a couple of songs. They go in order of their albums and they play a couple songs from each one. And I was just jumping up and down each song of like, oh my God, like this is a hit, this is a hit. It was funny, they had so many hits that at the end of the show, I forgot that they played Sugar We're Going Down and Dance Dance. Because there's just that many.
Yeah, the fact that their closing song isn't even, the fact that their closing song is a song off of their first ever record is just something that is so special and like I love about them, that no matter how big they've gotten, you know, it's like it's always about where they come from. And I think, you know, the fact that Sugar is just like song 3 in a 27 song set list is like, it says a lot for the band and what they've been able to do. I think we've gushed enough about Fall Out Boy.
Can you tell we love this album?
I will say quickly before we get into the 3, I definitely have too many favorite songs to name. But the one I do want to shout out is Nobody Puts Baby in the Corner. I like how you mentioned before, like being able to relate to the songs and like what the lyrics are saying. It was funny, it's like growing up listening to this, half the time I didn't really know what Patrick was saying. And
oh yeah, well that
on this song, I for the longest thought he would say, "You look so bootiful," like stretching out the word beautiful. And it wasn't until I was much older that my friend was like, "He's saying you look so good in blue." And I was like, "Oh," he's like, "But your version is very sweet. Like I like the sentiment of your version."
It's kind of the opposite of
it's the complete opposite. But that song holds a special place in my heart because it reminds me of one of my friends. We used to like drive around her car and like just scream sing the opening line of "Drink down your gin and kerosene." That I knew. That part I knew. It was the other part that I like, oh, you look so beautiful.
Well, that's like Dance Dance there was like YouTube videos back in the day of literally all the misheard lyrics and whatnot, which was amazing. But to your point, actually, I would say my song on this album, I think it's A Little Less 16 Candles. Whatever one is, I set my clocks early because I know I'm always late. Because I tend to be late. So that one hits.
Cool. So per usual, I have done the honors of looking up this album's birth chart.
Which we did not get to this part when we recorded the episode last time, so this is fresh.
Yes, this is all very fresh. The one thing I will say, I know when the album came out, therefore I know the sun sign. I feel like you don't remember when it came out per se, so you might be able to have a proper like guess at the sun sign.
It is tough. Like this was definitely a tough album, and that's why, as G said, like we're gonna listen through all of the songs to help us. But okay, so I will say this album to me is a fall album, like mood wise. Though I do kind of know that it came out in the summer-ish. So knowing that, I want to say it's like a Cancer.
Okay, you're like kind of close, but also kind of not really. But give me your reasons as to why you're Cancer, and you might be able to get to what the sign is.
Well, for me, there's a lot of moods in this album. It's definitely a very moody album. I feel like there's a lot, we talk about cancers and like longing. I feel like there was a ton of longing in this album. I definitely I got a lot of water vibes in this album. And knowing that it's summer, and if I want to place water in that, that's where Cancer comes in.
Interesting. Do you want to know what the sun sign actually is?
Is it like is it on either end of Cancer?
Yes. Well,
like, does it come right before or right after Cancer?
No.
Oh, okay. Is it a Gemini? Gemini just came into my head.
No, but you're moving in the right direction.
So air? No, that wouldn't make sense in the summer.
No. I meant timeline wise.
Okay.
Like you're moving in the right direction.
Taurus?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. So this album came out May 3rd, 2005, making it the Taurus sign. Yeah. So I think some of the elements that you were feeling as far as like the longing and like the watery elements come into play in the rest of the chart. But for me, I think taking the music out of it for a second and just kind of looking at what was going on at the time, especially looking at Pete and everything he was doing. Taurus, like steady, like being very stubborn and kind of like, everyone says Tauruses are lazy, but I think they're also hardworking when it's like something they're passionate about. Like, that's kind of the energy I get from like what was going on with this band. Just like Pete with Decadence and like discovering all these other bands, you know, Patrick even like producing albums for other bands. Like they were putting in a lot of work and they kind of were just like a bull, almost like head down, focusing what they were trying to get done for others in their circle and for Fall Out Boy as well. So I think as far as like the musical side of the album, I struggle to see the Taurus and where it comes into play. But I think as we move through the chart, we'll find ways to relate that into the music itself, especially because we've found a couple of times now when we were like, the way we base our analysis is like when the album was released, the home label, like where the main label for the band is located. It doesn't necessarily reflect when the album was actually written. And sometimes we've come across of like whatever the moon sign is actually when the album was being written. So I'm curious to see if, you know, we'll find that information out on this one. But
yeah, that's fair. Well, also Taurus is Scorpio's sister sign.
Yeah.
So there's like a little tie there.
I think that's why we're in love. It's like, it's made for us. Okay, your guess for the moon sign.
I don't know why my brain is downloading to me like Gemini energy somewhere. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with it because it's what's coming to me. I guess I would say Gemini moon. And well, and like I do feel like this album kind of goes back and forth a bit. Almost between like confidence and insecurity, you know? So I could see that play in a way. And then for rising sign, I mean, I really did get a lot of water on this album. So perhaps I mean, it could be any three of them, but I guess Cancer or Scorpio would be the top ones for me, but we'll go with Cancer since I already said Cancer.
Okay. So my guess is, and I'm trying to be fair because I've now seen the chart, at least for the big three. I think when I first heard it and was like listening to the album to do this episode, it was really hard to kind of pinpoint what energies I was getting, but definitely was feeling the water signs, especially in like the emotionality in some of these songs. And like, it's funny that you bring up like the struggle between like confidence and feeling insecure and all of that, because that is all over this record. And in that, I think I wanted it to have Scorpio in its chart, which I will confirm. Unfortunately, it does not. But Scorpio was my guess for the moon sign. And then I think for the rising, just how it presented itself, I was between either like an air or Scorpio, or not a Scorpio, or a water sign as well. And I think for sake of balancing things out, I landed on an air sign, and I was thinking more like Aquarius, because I feel like when we did our listen through in the car, like there was a couple of songs where it was almost kind of like a guiding force. So maybe even Aquarius or like Capricorn kind of energy of like a guiding force of like, I've lived through this, so let me tell you how to avoid these things kind of thing. And
which
like,
could also be Taurus though.
Could also be Taurus, yeah. So I was kind of thinking more air sign there with the Aquarius, but now that we're talking through it, maybe I was thinking like a Capricorn Taurus rising sign.
But that would make sense because then we would be the same of like we both think that there's air and water in the big three for the rest of the big three.
However,
and Taurus is Earth, by the way, if anyone doesn't know.
Yeah, Taurus is very much head of the ground, feet on the ground. That being said, we are both wrong.
On both ends or?
On both, well, I'm close on one, I'm close on the rising. But let's start with the moon. Your guess was Gemini.
Yeah.
You're close in the sense of the duality. But is it
Libra?
It's Pisces.
Pisces,
the two fish. So I think a lot of the things you were saying of like the insecurity and the confidence and all of that, like it can play into Pisces as well too. And I think the double-sidedness too, like I'm forgetting which songs it was, but I know the first song for sure when we were kind of like, we liked the element of like, Patrick's almost telling you like, hey, turn this record off. Like, this is not what you need. And then further down into the album, he's like, actually, we are what you need. Like, we're the band to do it kind of thing. Yeah. Like that kind of counterbalancing of like, yeah, forget what I said. Like, I don't care if I'm contradicting myself. I feel like Pisces is kind of that, like where they're very practical in some ways, but they're also the dreamers, you know, they fight a lot to like make their dreams come true and create the world in their vision and how they want to live it. And I think in certain ways, like that is kind of a hidden theme, if you will, on this record. So I think Pisces moon definitely makes sense for this.
Yeah. And I'm already thinking I'll wait until we get there, but I already know my song for that one.
As for the rising,
is it fire? Is there any fire?
There's no fire.
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't really get fire from this album. Is it Earth?
It is Earth.
Okay. Was it Capricorn?
It was Capricorn.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay, you know what? I love that.
Yeah, this album is literally made for us.
I know.
Like it's just missing a little bit of Scorpio.
That just makes me love the album so much more.
Yeah. It's I feel like again playing into the outside music elements too of like again that element of putting in the work, you know.
Which they did. Yeah.
They did all the touring they did, you know, and then again like all the side quests they were doing when they were like working on breaking their own band. It's just very admirable, very inspiring. And I think this album too, being that, you know, calling out one of the songs on the album, sophomore
slump.
Yeah, sophomore slump or comeback of the year. Like the thing that they say in the industry is your first album, you know, you break, you have your hits or whatever, and then second album, is it gonna prove that that was legit or are you gonna flop? You know what I mean? Or have the sophomore slump. And being that this was their second album, and this is the one that made them explode into the band we know today. Like, I think that is that Capricorn energy coming through of like, no, I'm going to do the work. I'm going to have the patience and what's the word I'm trying to think of? Tenacity, but like structure.
Oh, I don't, yeah.
Discipline, the discipline to make this work for myself. And like, these are all the things I need to do in order to be the biggest band in the world kind of thing. And like, they did that, and probably not with that intention at all, but just like, how do I make doing this my career for the rest of my life? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like they're all very humble guys and like really, you know, they're not like, we're trying to be the biggest and the baddest, you know what I mean? Like, they just want to play music, you know, and they do it well, and it worked for them. And this album was a huge part of their piece of their story. And the chart is really, it's kind of cool to see it come together in that way.
And I would say too, this is a little more subtle, but Capricorns, you know, I think of as, I mean, I have a Capricorn moon, but like kind of dark and they're not known for their emotions, but they have a lot.
They're very emotional, yeah.
Yeah, they like keep them reserved, but it gives me the poet vibes, you know, like kind of the dark poet vibes, and that's, I mean, the song titles. That's where we get the long song titles from. You know, very, very wordy. So I see that in play as well. Okay, should we talk about songs?
Yes. So going back to the sun sign of it being a Taurus.
I'm gonna pull up the list here.
Yeah, this is where I mean,
Well, okay, I have one. It's a little bit of a stretch, but we're gonna go with it. It's what I said before. Because I know that is a stereotype of tourists.
Okay.
That they're lazy.
I'll give you that one because that was gonna be mine, but I have another one. So
Okay.
go.
So I'm gonna say a little less 16 candles. I'm pretty sure that's the one with the clock line.
Yeah.
Because I set my clocks early because I know I'm always late, just lounging around and you might not realize what time it is and whatnot. So
Yes.
we're gonna go with that.
Because that was also going to be my guess. I'll go with my second one. Nobody puts baby in the corner simply because the friend I was talking about is also a Taurus. Therefore, I'll make it a Taurus in honor of her.
We'll allow that. Okay, Pisces for the moon. So I said I did have a song in mind, and mine would be Of All the Gin Joints in All the World. That one always gives me a Pisces vibe, like the musicality of it and whatnot. Like I always, especially the chorus of that, it feels so dreamy to me and like flowy. It gives the fish. It gives me the fish vibes.
Yes. Okay. So yet again, you've kind of taken one that I was also say. This is great. We're on the same page. But for sake of, duality, I guess. I don't know, spicing it up. I will also say for Pisces, it could be 7 minutes in heaven out of Van Halen.
Okay.
I feel like that one is kind of like more like wishing or like speaking your wishes into existence, almost kind of energy of like, while the Pisces is the dreamer, they don't just dream, you know what I mean? Like they try and actually make those dreams come true, whether it's through manifestation or whatever it is. That's what I'm gonna say, since you already took mine.
Okay, I like that. And then, okay, so Capricorn, I have two in mind.
I'm gonna go with Get Busy Living or Get Busy Dying.
That was okay.
Simply on the get busy, like nobody wants to work anymore. Get up and work,
Okay, I'm gonna have a semi-long explanation for that. I'm gonna go into it. So I had 2.5 guesses.
Oh my God, okay.
So my first, I kind of wanted to say XO, although in my heart of heart, and I think you would agree as well, we think it's a Scorpio.
XO is Scorpio, yeah.
And Get Busy Living and XO are kind of like sister songs. Therefore, you would think same energy. But maybe it's because I have Scorpio and Capricorn in me. I do see similarities of like the darkness, the heaviness of both. So actually XO, even though I really think it's a Scorpio, I was going to say Capricorn. So I get where the Get Busy came in. But you know what? I think I'm going to go with, as you say, for the sake of duality, the opener, actually. Our lawyers may have changed the name of, and actually the song title's too long for me to read it. So give me one sec. Our lawyer made us change the name of this song.
Stop. I'll just get you the name. Hold on.
Okay. The song title was too long for me to read on Spotify. So our lawyer made us change the name of the song so we wouldn't get sued. Which one? The title in itself.
I was gonna say the title is very Capricorn energy, yeah.
But I just feel like it comes in with such a punch of like that hardworking theme. Like you can feel it in this, and I really, like we were saying, the title itself just gives you that energy. So I think for that to be the very first song of the energy, like it makes sense for it to also be a rising.
Yeah, how you present yourself, how the album presents itself. Yeah, definitely. Amazing. We did it. We tackled the biggest beast. Fall Out Boys from Under the Cork Tree. Any last remarks?
Well, we do have for fun a magic 8 ball.
We do.
So I think we should ask it a question.
What should we ask?
Maybe one question each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna channel my inner Pete Wentz, and ask about the current situation we're finding ourselves in, as in recording this episode. Even though we've given you the big three, you know, and you have all the answers. So you could leave now, but should we just wrap this all up right now? Oh, please.
Try again later.
Oh, response hazy. Try again.
Okay, that feels like it wants us to ask it more questions. We're going to see what the Magic 8 Ball thinks about this album. Magic 8 Ball, is this your favorite Fall Out Boy album? Don't count on it. No, wait, we're gonna get it.
It feels like it's a folie à deux for me.
Okay, is this the Magic 8 Ball's favorite Fall Out Boy album? As I see it, yes.
Should we all wrap this up now? There's nothing. There is no answer.
Last question before we wrap this up. Magic 8 Ball. Will everyone listening have a good week this week? Coming up. You don't want that answer. Hold on. Yes, definitely. And we're going to leave you at that. If you haven't listened to this album, definitely check it out. And as we already said, we know in the Fall Out Boy community, there's a lot of opinions on which album is people's favorite. So we'd love to hear on our comments what you think. Is this your favorite? Do you have a different favorite? Let us know.
Yeah.
Bye.
Until next time.
Thanks so much for listening to the Cosmic Cadence podcast. If you like what you heard, please take the time to subscribe and like, rate, and review wherever you listen. It really helps us out.
You can also find us on socials at Cosmic Cadence Pod on all platforms. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you next time.